make use of, and see here Federer, he's just jumping, sorry. So combining all these three strokes, and Federer, as you see, as he hits the stroke in the coming video, he is leaving the ground. Why after all he is leaving the ground? He could have stood there and hit the strokes. Many of times we think that probably they are trying to produce a lot of style by hitting and jumping and hitting, to do all that. It's not the reason. It's just when you leave the ground, from the closed chain you get an open chain, and an open chain allows you to turn your hips and pelvis more. So you amplify your energy at these segments, and then you are able to hit it. So he's also human, and he's hitting the same stroke by using these principles. So these three principles are how you amplify your speed in the ground stroke. Coming to your amplification of energy in the serve, how do you do it in the serve? In the serve, literature has shown that the hip and trunk rotation is something around 300 degrees in 1 second. It rotates at that high speed, the speed at which it rotates. The leg and trunk, by its rotation itself, they are contributing to around 50 to 55% of the total force in the serve, as Dr. Rajan also said about the core, very important in the serve. This video again you see, Roddick. See the trunk rotation, it's going almost square to the baseline, 123 degrees of rotation, almost square to the baseline. This is the amount of rotation in that small stipulated time he's getting. Again, compared to other of his colleagues, they are not getting that much of rotation of their pelvis. And the reason why he is able to generate serves at around 155 and why others are not doing it. So he has that technique. Again, now coming to the, this was about the trunk and pelvis. Now coming to the shoulder. Shoulder, it has been shown in the literature that it rotates at the speed of around 1040 to 1715 degrees in 1 second. That high speed of rotation is happening in the shoulder. Elbow, again the extension is again that much high speed. Forearm pronation again, and wrist flexion. You see the amount of degrees that they go under rotation in 1 second. So this is the speed with which they rotate their segments is another key by which they produce the energy. The shoulder internal rotation contributing to 17% of this force, and forearm being 15%. So again, this video here, what do you mean by the shoulder rotation? You see the coiling, you see the shoulder going back, and from that coiled position it goes into a motion of kinetic energy, and this internal rotation of the shoulder is such high speed, with rotation speeds around 1050 degrees in 1 second. That is why they are able to produce. And in this picture you can see is what I mean by the forearm pronation. As the arm comes here just before the racket hits the ball, he pronates his arm. Again, the coiling, uncoiling, and with a high speed. So he is using potential into kinetic and then amplifying it to produce the speed. So these are the segments, minute segments, where the athlete uses this science to produce the speed and increase his speed. This is how, I'm just talking it in bit detail so that the coaches can understand maybe and can help. But again, a word of caution, this much of high speed and all this is not possible with the proper conditioning of the body. You're very prone to get injured if you're not preparing your body that well. But if you're prepared well, these are techniques which will help you. Again, evidence. 96, an article which again said that the role of, they found that the upper segment, trunk, shoulder, internal rotation of shoulder, internal rotation, wrist, palm, ulnar flexion, the rotation speed, they found that it increases the racket head speed. And if you increase the racket head speed, you increase the speed of the ball. Another article, 2010, as late as this, they found that advanced players, the double-handed players, they use the trunk and linear segment acceleration to produce the stroke power. So again, I'm trying to prove scientifically, give a backing of what I'm saying. The trunk and the linear segments like the forearm and the shoulder, the acceleration of that was the reason for power stroke. This is all evidence-based. More of evidence for you. Allied players, they found that with higher racket speed and significant higher linear velocity of the shoulder and angular velocity of the pelvic and trunk, they were able to achieve higher racket speed. Another evidence for you. So we can conclude now that acceleration of each segment, like the pelvis, trunk or shoulder, will actually lead to generation of that power. Now the third principle, the briefing about kinetic chain has already been done by DVR sir. It's just a definition of the kinetic chain that was given in the ANA journal in 2003. It says the kinetic chain is basically the coordinated sequences of the body segments from ground to above so that you can transfer the forces effectively. The word coordinated sequencing is very important when you want to produce the force. One segment of it is rotating. It should not be like they are rotating in a uncoordinated. One is rotating, one has already rotated. It should not be like that. It should be a coordinated sequence. What I mean by this, you can see in this video. See, rhotic again, knees extension from flexion to extending, now the pelvis rotating. So one segment is done with, then the pelvis rotates, then the shoulder rotates, then the shoulder, and then the forearm pronates, and finally the wrist snaps from extension into neutral. So each segment follows the other in a proper sequence. This is how he's getting. Again, the ground stroke, Federer. See the knees extending, pelvis rotating, shoulder rotating, and then upper shoulder rotating, and then this is the reason he's able to get the power. So this is how his power goes from ground to legs to pelvis to core to shoulder rotation, finally to his trunk. They rotate in a proper sequence, not haphazardly. That is why the full energy that he's produced, he's able to channel it into the ball without breaking it somewhere and leading to some injury. You know, Federer is another like Stefan Edberg, a player, I would say, very rarely I heard he got injured anytime during his career. So the secret behind this high velocity topspin and serve is the efficient utilization of the intact kinetic chain by temporal sequencing of the segments. Chain should be intact, it should be in good quality, and you have to transfer the energy in a proper sequence. This is the kinetic chain, what I am saying. From legs it goes up, the power goes up and into the racket for the serve, for the ground stroke, and similarly for the serve, the chain, this is the chain, it goes, this is how the power gets transmitted to the ball, and this is the sequence in which it should happen by amplifying it at each segment. So again, efficient utilization of the kinetic chain, my evidence, I would like to support whatever I have said by evidence. Articles are there for you. The articles, they proved that firing of the segments in sequence was important for ball velocity, and they studied and found that if the player was not doing it in a sequence, then he was actually injuring himself by not firing the segments in proper sequence. Now, this is done with the scientifically sound technology. Now we come to the modern tennis player. As I said, the technology has advanced. He is much more better equipped than players used to be 15, 20 years back. The four more important things in technology: the racket technology, the balls have undergone some modification, energy drinks, you know, there are some evidence that energy drinks also help. This might be interesting for the coaches. And with the new technologies like the speed gun and all, there is scientific evidence that this has also led to the increase in speed. Maybe this is somewhere where we are lacking in India. Probably we are not having it at all levels to increase the speed of our athletes. Racket. I have an article to support you, 2006, a journal article which talks about the modern rackets, balls and surfaces. It says the racket, you said, gone a lot of changes. The old racket is a wooden racket. Now the racket is it's made of a composite metal, generally graphite mixed with aluminum, as Mr. Mahajan told us. And this has led to the racket being molded into different shapes, allowing us a bigger sweet spot to hit, leading to a more power in the shots. It has become lighter. From wood it has gone into, from 400 it has gone to 250 grams. This light speed allows you to swing the racket or accelerate the racket head in a much higher speed, which has led to the power in the strokes. And the change in the material, the racket has also become more stiffer. So if it becomes more stiffer, when the ball hits the racket, it doesn't vibrate much. So it tries to give the full of the energy of the ball back to the ball without absorbing much of the energy into it. This has some consequences that the energy gets transferred into the arm, and it can lead to injuries. But this is another scientifically based technology. Quoting that article, reasons for increase in the speed. So why does he sweet spot and all that? Okay, now tennis balls. Tennis balls, again, article to support you. What we see, the deformation of the ball. The figure here shows the deformation. The ball hits the racket, it tends to deform. The deformation of the racket ball has been shown to be decreasing over the period of years. From 96 to now 2000, the deformation the ball undergoes has decreased. They have made the balls like that, it decreases. So this again, when the ball hits the racket, when it deforms, it loses more energy. It doesn't deform that much as it used to be in 60s or something. So again, that's lead to the increase in the speed. So less ball deformation means the ball doesn't deform much, it's the strings that deform much. So this gives a trampoline effect to the ball when it hits the racket and leading to much of the speed. Energy drinks. Now many players, we have seen them in the breaks, they drink. Everything they do is scientifically based. Let me tell you, it's not for fashion or it's not for just to create a hype. So energy drinks, there is again literature to support it. Energy drinks, they found out that although not in the very initial phases, but when you are going into a game which is bound to stretch to like 4 hours or 5 hours, then the later stages of the game, the energy drink does improve your stroke performance. And there is literature which supports that These energy drinks allow higher stroke frequency during play with decreased rates of perceived exertion, especially when the matches go long, beyond 5 hours. Again, this one as late as 2006. Although more research is required, it appears that it may be beneficial in tennis sessions lasting more than 90 minutes. So, if it's going to be a long match you are expecting, then better go for energy drinks. That will also help in your stroke quality and frequency. But a caution here for the coaches especially. And the article also mentions that if you are giving your athlete an energy drink within 45 minutes of a start of the game, then he may actually have a rebound hypoglycemia when the match starts. So if you are giving him anything like energy drink, so go it before, like 1 hour before the match, or maybe straight away during the match, not in that period of 45 minutes before the match. It can lead to rebound hypoglycemia that could lead to decrease in the power of his strokes. So again, modern technology, what I said, the speed guns, I had an article to support as late as 2012 that they allowed 2 sets of players. One was allowed to serve without the use of a speed gun. So he had no idea at what speed he was serving. But another set of players, they were allowed to serve with the knowledge that they are serving, they are serving at 120. Then the next serve, they are serving at 125. So they had the feedback. They had the feedback that what speed they are serving. And what they found that when you give this scientific feedback to them with these modern technologies, they were able to actually increase the power of your serve. So this is how modern technology is helping, which is being used quite efficiently in, I think, Western, maybe where here we are lacking more uniformly in using these things. So use of the speed gun augmented, this gave me augmented feedback to the players and they were able to increase the serve speed. And last but not the least, the players, as I said, they are now more fit, more strong, bigger, more athletic, more aggressive, and they are more flexible than ever as you compare with the older players. This cannot be, as I said, all these acceleration at the segments, high speed rotation is not possible if he is not fit and strong. Again, I have evidence to prove that. Many articles, time has already crossed, I know, I'm sorry for that, but many articles there which time and again support this notion of mine. And if I read out just in brief the conclusions these articles made, they said most professional players today resource strength and conditioning specialists on a full-time or part-time basis. They give their percentage of their match fees to them, just makes sure that they are fit. One article showed that there was strong correlation between the VO2 max, that the oxygen consumption, and the following year's ATP ranking. So they concluded you optimize the cardiorespiratory capacity of the players. This comes in the conditioning of the player. Another contributor, the physical attributes have a strong influence on tennis performance in teenage tennis players. Physical attributes, I mean the height and all that. Then another concluded, tennis players significantly are more flexible as compared to the others. And definitely, as Dr. Rajan told us, that the shoulder becomes more flexible in external rotation all. Speed, vertical power abilities, and maximal strength, the dominant side, were significantly correlated with tennis performance. Again, they are talking about power, speed, and strength. They were correlated with the tennis performance. And the tennis player's serve velocity can be increased through specifically directed muscular strengthening or stretching regimens. This is not what I am saying, it's all what the articles over the periods research has shown. I won't go into this brief, I will just very briefly tell about how you increase lower extremity strengthening, very simple exercises, squats, upper body push-ups, and the TheraBand, as Dr. Ashish Babulka very commonly uses, good for rotator cuff strengthening. Push-ups, another good exercise. Upper extremity dumbbell curls and all for wrist are good. Core, very important, as Dr. Rajan told us, very important to do the course. Nowadays, the modification of core has said, I would request the coaches to undergo that. There is core strengthening with inspiratory muscle training. There is a very good exercise for any athlete who is doing a lot of anaerobic workout. You do the course, along with that you breathe in and out in a respiratory machine which offers you resistance. And then stretching is very important, both dynamic and static, speed, agility training, anaerobic, the plyometrics. This is all your subject, physiotherapy, you are well aware of all this. Endurance training, again in tennis specifically, you stress more on the anaerobic short sprints, but also once in a week you should go on for the long distance running and cycling. This is how you should train this is in very short how you should condition your athlete if you want to generate that much of power as the elite players are doing. So take home finally, I'm sorry if it's stretched a lot. Anthropometric factors like height do give an edge, that's true, but it cannot bypass the proper tennis specific training and conditioning. Second, loading the segments of the chain, potential to kinetic energy transfer is important during the preparation phase. Then you have to utilize the kinetic chain by properly sequencing, having a proper sequence. Knee extends, hip flex, pelvis turns, shoulder turns, and then it goes into forearm pronates, and then this should be a proper sequence. Third, accelerate at each segment. Then you can get more power from each segment, and then finally you channel it to the racket. And fourth, technological advancements, if it could be possible, provide your player with all this, then he will also have a better chance at getting that power. So thanks for your patience, and thanks to Britain having a 77-year-old patience, 77-year patience for Murray.
Thank you, Jayant. We hope